Boom. And we're off. Look who's here. Ken LaVicka, but today's not livid LaVicka Loca.
No.
He might be living La Vida Loca.
Yeah.
Ken LaVicka, the voice of FIU Athletics, ESPN Radio talk show host, Inter Miami Football Club voice as well, and former Dolphins beat reporter, and partly voice of the fan as well. All of those things wrapped up into one package, one dynamic package. And today we get to talk to Ken after a win for a change.
Man.
And did you remember what that felt like? Oh, sorry.
No, I forgot about that. I've lost my way, but it's part of the reason why I'm lucid, LaVicka, today. This is a nice change of pace, and it wasn't one of those like fluky. Everything was all over the place. There was no flow to a game. There was actual defense, and there was timely offense, and there was a running game. I mean, my God, what did we see on Sunday?
What was that team, and what did they do with the Dolphins? Actually, the title of the episode actually is "Who Are the Real Dolphins?" And you make the good point that unlike the first win of the season against the Jets, which left you feeling you got away with one there, and also there was the fact that you lost Tyreek Hill for the season that night also is kind of like it was hard to feel very encouraged about that win. Now, the only reason not to feel encouraged about this win is because it happened kind of a little late in the season. And chances are it's still not going to make a difference in terms of being able to make the playoffs. At least it gives you some hope heading into the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I know that, I mean, Poop, you and I lived it together down in Davie, the Suck for Luck season. And while it was cute and fun for the fan base, it was miserable around that building. Like that whole year, it just sucked because you could feel it around the building. The team got, what was it, 0-7, 0-8 start before that win in Kansas City. And so I get the wanting a high draft pick, wanting to tank, all that stuff, but there's also you do that and you feel solid about that when there's a quarterback you want to go and get. When you're in a situation to get said quarterback, and maybe the Dolphins are, but it definitely doesn't feel like that's what their game plan is right now. And in my opinion, I know we love Mendoza at Indiana now, but I don't think that this is an overly strong quarterback class that you should be salivating over to try and tank for. There ain't no Andrew Luck in this class. We'll put it that way.
Correct. And Mendoza looks like a good prospect. Does he look like somebody who like, whoa?
No, Kurt Cignetti rules that Indiana offense is perfect for him, and I don't know if it translates to the NFL.
Correct. And almost invariably, and again, if you go through the mindset of like tanking for a player, more often than not, it doesn't produce good results anyway. And I know there are some fans who are like actually upset the Dolphins won against Atlanta because it's going to hurt their draft position.
I don't want to say it's negligible, but it's sort of negligible. How about, here's a novel concept. How about you draft better in the first round? Period. How, even despite, like, the Dolphins are almost exclusively over the last 15 years or so picking anywhere from 10 to 18. Like, that's where they live in the first round, but they have passed on an awful lot of impact, constant Pro Bowl players in that span. It's not like they're not there for the taking, and the decision making has just been poor in terms of immediate impact for the most part. And this goes back to every conversation that we have had over the last 6 weeks and the decision makers in the building. Listen, I don't know what's going to happen there, but I do know on the field, you winning a couple of games here through the rest of the season should not impact your draft prospects and getting someone who can really help you in the first round.
Here's an interesting question though that I don't think we ever bring up when we look at all the great players the Dolphins missed out on in the draft. And it's a very simple fact of would they have become those same players had they been drafted by the Dolphins? Sure. And that obviously it's a hypothetical. We don't know. Like would Justin Jefferson become like one of the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL if the Dolphins had taken him at 18 in 2020 instead of taking Austin Jackson, which in retrospect looks like a massive whiff? Maybe, probably, but again, we don't know for sure, and that's just part of the whole thing. The other issue with the game against Atlanta, which again you mentioned, it was a complete total effort. There was nothing fluky about it. They kind of kicked their ass from beginning to end. And I love fans who go going like, see why they should have done this a whole year. They could, if they could have, they would have.
Yeah.
Circumstances certainly make an impact. Like for example, it's all great that offensive coordinator Frank Smith was on the sideline. Did that help? Yeah. With Daniel Brunskill used as a sixth offensive lineman, hallelujah, they used a sixth offensive lineman. Did that help for the running game? Sure. Does that mean that had the Dolphins done that earlier, say against, I don't know, any one of their earlier games against the Colts in week 1, more than likely your results the same.
Right.
And what separates the good teams from the mediocre teams or the bad team, generally speaking, is not the ability to have a really, really good game once in a while, because every team can have that.
Yeah.
Doing it more than once regularly.
Yeah, for sure. And just because the Jets found a way to erase a 14-point deficit in the fourth quarter against the Bengals, that doesn't mean they're good. It means that Aaron Glenn can brag about the fact he tried to hide Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields. That's the most down bad thing I've ever seen in what usually is a down bad Jet situation, where you're being mum about Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor as your starting quarterback. It did work. That's the thing that drives me crazy. He didn't deserve to have that work, but it actually did work. But yeah, I you can make those changes and it can have a fleeting effect, but it's nothing long term. But what I will say, and I know what happens anytime I do this and start to still speak positively about Mike McDaniel, I know people don't want to hear it. But after a loss like was suffered at Cleveland, where that's one of the most embarrassing Dolphins losses, probably the last decade. It might not be the most embarrassing loss, but it's up there. That Browns team stinks, and you got absolutely slapped around by them. Tried some different things. You have a sixth offensive lineman. You move Frank Smith down to the sideline. Ali Gordon suddenly is inserted back into the rotation and has himself a really strong game. You're not trying to do too much with Tua. It needed change. It needed maybe a more conservative approach. It needed a little bit different approach, and the Dolphins did that, and at least for now, you think to yourself, hey, that was actually competent, and it wasn't stick your fingers in ears and just go, la, 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 we're going to do the same thing over and over again. It was, we understand that this isn't good enough, and let's tweak it a little bit. So I, at least from that standpoint, can say, all right, that made me feel good that they went that route.
Yeah, and the term I would use as maybe the biggest difference, along with the stylistic changes they made and the operational changes they made, is this was a case where they were not chasing the game.
Correct.
Which has happened quite a bit so far in 2025. They were in control. They never trailed. And this is why I mentioned low-key gigantic was them getting a 3-and-out on defense after the Dolphins won the toss and received, which I despise it, by the way. I'm a very strong believer in stacking. If you get defer, try to get the end of first half, start a second half possession.
Yep. Little 2-for-1 action. Yeah. I completely agree, but that's an important point, and I'm glad you brought that up. This whole being on the front foot thing, because the Dolphins have been chasing the lead all season long. And so finally, it's amazing how much easier it is to play when you can start dictating how the game is going to traverse. If you start to get some momentum, and we haven't seen much timely complementary football from the Dolphins either this year. The game ended in the third quarter when the Falcons are driving, and then the fumble happens, and then the Dolphins get the ball back. They promptly march the field. They get it into the end zone. I mean, I was trying to think back. I don't think we've seen a better, more efficient, more consequential sequence of football from the Dolphins this year than that. And the game was over after that. The Falcons were absolutely dead after that. Everything else was a mere formality, and the Dolphins did a good job of just choking out the rest of the game. But start to finish for the most part, and you can nitpick here and there. The fact that you only get 1 sack on Kirk Cousins, I don't like that. That's problematic, but you did keep Bijan Robinson to 25 yards. Like, that was stunning for me. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened, but it was a competent professional showing, which has not happened since going back to, I don't know, maybe the last month and a half of last year. I don't know.
But despite the fact they only got 1 sack, is they made Cousins uncomfortable at times,
Sure.
which was part of the if you recall, the first third down, and I mentioned that drive as being gigantically important. The Dolphins, had they gone down, because they, again, as I mentioned, they won the toss, they elected to receive, they go 3 and out.
Yep.
With a really ugly looking series. I can imagine this is a team that came in probably with a psyche that's a little bit fragile. And if the Falcons had gone on and scored on their first possession, who knows where that game goes? And the Dolphins produced a 3 and out. And one of the key, the third down, they got pressure, hurried Cousins, who looked like absolute dog excrement.
He stinks, man.
No, he was brutal. And he got happy feet very quickly with Jalen Phillips coming towards him and wound up with like a really short completion to Kyle Pitts, and Dolphins got it back, and then the route was on. More than anything else, what the Dolphins were to me, whereas in 2023, when it was working, they were explosive. In this game, they were efficient. You look at 338 total yards. It's not a gigantic number. Even 6 for 13 on third down is solid. It's not great. For all the talk about the running game being so good, Dolphins averaged 3.8. But again, they stayed ahead of the chains. God, I hate that expression. I can't believe I said it. They did not have many negative plays on offense. They had a couple of tackles for loss, a couple of legal procedure with false starts on Patrick Paul. But outside of that, they didn't have the big negative play that would put them in bad down and distance situations, which is where they would get in trouble, and they're not equipped right now to handle that.
Right. What's more annoying, by the way, ahead of the chains or behind the sticks?
I'll give you another one. The goal of the offense is to get that player out in space.
Good Lord. Yeah, I'm with you. That is wildly annoying. All of them are at the absolute worst. It's okay to say 3rd and 13 instead of behind the sticks, okay? So you mentioned the run game wasn't explosive. Obviously, Achane is perfectly capable of being explosive. We've seen it. But I don't think that's you need that. And he did have a big play in this game. But I also don't think that it needs to be explosive per se. You mentioned 3.8, but as long as you're churning out yardage, as long as you're able to dictate these possession, and as long as you're not having those negative plays, it is fine to lurch. It's fine lurching, because again, you are imposing your will, which has been extremely difficult for the Dolphins to do. And I was looking back just because I was curious, and I'm sure there's people watching right now that know this off the top of their head. But when the Dolphins were the number 1 offense in 2023, they were also the number 6 rushing offense in the league. They come into this one, they're 23rd in rushing, and that's why forget Tua for a second. The fact that Tua does not have or has not had any significant backfield accentuation has hurt him. You don't want to rely on the left arm of Tua. And seeing Ollie Gordon get reps, he runs extremely hard. He runs north-south. He's incredibly physical. That matters. Having the 3 running backs that saw time, that matters. Achane, he's the bulk back now, but he shouldn't be the only back. And so them being able to generate a bullying run game, like I do think that qualified as a bullying run game, as much as the Dolphins can do it with a guy like Achane and that stature. I know we're not talking Derrick Henry here, but it was bullying enough where it made a difference, and Tua wasn't asked to with one eye be unbelievable. Like that's fine. That's fine. I don't think it's going to translate to a 7-game winning streak, but I think that it shows, we are capable of doing something like that. And anytime you can present that, there's building blocks that can come off of that.
No, correct. And the question is whether the recipe can be replicated starting against the Baltimore Ravens, who will present a lot more challenges from their offense. On defense, they're still a question mark a little bit. They've gotten a lot of their players back. Roquan Smith returned to the lineup against the Bears last Sunday. Kyle Hamilton's been back in the lineup. Marlon Humphrey's been back in the lineup. They still don't have Madubuike. I said that really, really fast, so my mispronunciation would be.
I was going to say that's really savvy of you. That's a veteran move where you don't know if you're going to be able to roll it off, so you say it really fast with a proper amount of syllable accentuation, and we just say, good job, Poop.
Exactly. Nobody would know. The point again is I don't know if this can be replicated. Obviously the Dolphins are going to try. It's a good formula, as you mentioned. If Tua is placed in a role where he doesn't have to be the offense, more often than not, he will deliver. What we saw at Cleveland was a complete offshoot. This was, again, I know he had 3 picks against the Chargers, completely different set of circumstances because, again, the first one went through the hands of Waddle. The last one's the last play of the game. So to pin 3 picks on him and say, look, he sucked, he had 3 picks, it's a little unfair against Cleveland. It was really, really rough from start to finish. But the game, again, that was an offshoot. The game circumstances are not going to be like that. Generally speaking, he is going to be efficient because that's what he is as a quarterback. If he needs to do a ton of heavy lifting because the running game is being shut down or because the Dolphins get away from it too quickly, not sure that's a recipe that's great for the Dolphins, particularly without Tyreek Hill and Darren Waller.
Right. This goes back to the run game, though, because it is clear now, and I know I hate when this turns Tua-centric, but I feel like you have to bring it up. Tua in conditions and Tua in a dome are 2 different Tuas. I just think there's, based on his skill set, there is a comfort zone. And I know that goes for any quarterback except maybe Josh Allen, who I think is a freak and wants as many conditions as possible. But the run game, that's why everything spiraled against Cleveland, because the defense was on the field forever and the Dolphins could not establish any sort of run game in what was a miserable weather day. And it's just the nature of this Dolphins offense and the roster construction. If you're having to rely on Tua in conditions, then you're screwed. You're done. And that's a fatal flaw of this team without question, because they've never been able to take advantage of gaining home field advantage in the postseason, even when this thing was rolling. But there is a difference between controlled climate Tua and unpredictable weather Tua, and he just looked so much more comfortable. But you've got a stretch of games here where it should be fairly favorable for you to be able to take advantage of conditions. And again, you're not going to make a playoff run, in my opinion, but you at least want this to look competent and not faceplant worst team in the league, because this team was starting to teeter on that a little bit. I guess my overall point is the run game is there. I think the offensive line can generate enough in the run game as long as everybody stays healthy. There's enough push there to at least, again, dictate tempo, and that's absolutely going to matter.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 2023 run game. They were 6th in yards. They were first in yards per attempt.
Yep. Right. Yes.
But one very important point to be made is that year, for all that success with those numbers, they sucked in short yardage.
Yes.
This is an area where they've been really, really good this year. And a part of it, we're going to have to be honest about it, is Ollie Gordon is a bigger back and generally won't go down if the blocking's not there. He has the ability to make guys miss. That is big for the Dolphins. And it doesn't have to be like it was in 2023 when they had a couple of ridiculous games. I know they had the 350-yard games on the ground against Denver. And they had another, I think it might have been against the Giants, where they had 250 yards. If it's, again, makes things simpler for the offense, you're asking Tua to be efficient. We absolutely can deliver way more often than not. And it also helps you control the clock. Again, I'm not playing the card to who did they beat. That Atlanta beat they beat on Sunday. You should check out social media and radio talk shows out of Atlanta. And it's all about they want Raheem Morris fired. How in the hell have they not changed the offensive play caller?
Yeah.
They want Kirk Cousins gone. I mean, it's bad. And that team, go ahead.
I'm not surprised, and it absolutely should be, because that was a listless bad performance. I was, and not to focus too much on the Falcons, but I was a huge proponent of them keeping Kirk Cousins in the offseason despite the contract, because my refrain was, oh, well, one, you don't want to take the cap hit, so you might as well have him as, for a still unproven quarterback, as sure thing a backup quarterback as you're going to find. Well, it's pretty clear he's not a sure thing backup quarterback, and he is a significant potential money hindrance for that team as well. And this is the first time he's seen appreciable action. So if you were hoping to deal him for a team that's desperate for a quarterback, it still might happen, but it's definitely not going to be as lucrative a return as you potentially were going to get. The fact you had to break glass emergency and that's what came out of it, like the fire extinguisher only had a couple of drips of foam left in it. That was the Kirk Cousins situation on Sunday. That's bad. He's bad.
No, that was brutal. Pardon me. Guaranteed salary of $27.5 million this year. That means whoever would trade for him would have to pay the prorated portion of that, with about half of it, so $13 million, based on the way he played. Even Raheem Morris apparently said in his press conference Monday that he was surprised at his performance.
Not exactly a ringing endorsement.
No, basically telling you, man, I didn't know it was going to suck that bad. Holy moly.
I'm wondering over the last couple of days for you, Poop, just the general reaction of Dolphins fans. Where are they at now? Is there and I think this is delusional, is there oh, look, we put some pieces together, can we string some wins together? Or is it just sort of that was a nice therapy session and it's back to the self-loathing, especially if Lamar is playing for the Ravens and they're bringing back some of the defensive bodies, like you said, and things could get sideways, because that looked a lot different than the previous 5 weeks against the Bears on Sunday.
Yeah, no, that was me who actually, because I wrote this on Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Check out the content all for free. That this is sad, but it's the third time in 5 years where the Dolphins have this kind of record at this time of the year. It was 1-7 in 2021. It was 2-6 last year. And guess what? They went on a run in both of those seasons. But what I've gotten from fans, and then as I look through social media, the two main themes after the game Sunday was, see what happens when they have a running game or when they focus on the run. And then B is they still suck. It was a mirage, and then they're still gonna have a bad season. So
I can't argue that.
Well, it very well may be, but for me, it's like, let's see how the next two games play out. Baltimore Thursday night, Buffalo 10 days after that.
Yeah.
And then let's reconvene and assess where they are. And then at that point, if they lose both and they're 2-8, then to me, it's like, okay, everything the rest of the season needs to be on evaluating your young players and who's going to be part of the overall plan. If they win both, then it's like, then I'm going to start looking at the standings.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think there has been, with my interactions, and I understand social media is not real life, or at least I hope more that it's not real life than what we experience. Yeah. But there has been and again, I am not ignorant to the fact that there are some fans who just want to see it burn and start from scratch. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. I am not calling you out or saying that that's the wrong approach to take. I absolutely get that. But there has been an outright cheering for, and there has been, I think, the suggestion or fans trying to talk themselves into, based on some breadcrumbs that they read in press clippings or excerpts from press conferences, that they want to believe they're talking themselves into a mutiny, that the locker room is being lost, that Mike McDaniel no longer has the ear of the players, that portion of the team is collapsing and it's only a matter of time. I think this answered the question. Mike McDaniel has not lost that locker room. He's still got enough of these players engaged and locked in and focused where they can still put together a non-fluky professional effort. So for those that are just waiting for the smoldering remains to come out of that Dolphins locker room and Mike McDaniel just limps away into the sunset, never to be heard about again, that hasn't happened. How do the players respect him? Well, it's clear they respect him enough to still fight for him and do so in a strong, overpowering manner. So it's time to extricate that from your brain, Mike McDaniel hasn't lost the locker room. He just hasn't. Even with the last couple of weeks and the stuff in the media, he hasn't lost the locker room.
No, and here's the question I would ask, like a lot of Dolphin fans, and by all means, put in the comment. If I were to present to you with two hypotheticals right now, tell me which one you would choose. Scenario A, it was a complete aberration. What happened against Atlanta? The Dolphins go back off the rails, finish 4-13, whatever, and everything gets blown up at the end of the season. Or would you prefer, even if they were to come up short at the end of the season, the Dolphins do go on one of their patented little second half runs, and they're, let's say, 8-8 or 9-7 through week 16, and they mathematically still have a shot at the playoffs, even if it comes up short at the end. But at the very least, you have some meaningful football games in December. And I know, I kind of get the feeling that more people than not would say, no, that would be same old over and over and over again. Don't want that. I'll give me the 4-13 right now.
All right, just to bring some nuance to it, my gut feel is you go with scenario A. If you had a rookie or a second-year quarterback who you were seeing appreciable improvement from, like sort of say like it's a Patriots quarterback. Why am I totally blanking right
Drake
now?
May.
Thank you. That was stupid of me. Drake May, where he's on the come up. It certainly seems like there is an extremely high ceiling for him, and you come just short of the playoffs. And I'm not saying and in this hypothetical, you have like a fourth or fifth year head coach, right? Then you say to yourself, hey, we got to hang on to this. There's something here. There's something on the horizon. But you have a fifth-year quarterback who has clearly had injury concerns and has started to descend down the mountain. And you've already gone through 2 years ago, back into the playoffs. Last year, make a run, don't make the playoffs, and you're in that situation again. I don't know what good it does for anybody to want to continue down that path. You're plateaued, and it's not like your Bills plateaued at the AFC Championship game or the divisional round, or plateaued at the AFC title game, Baltimore. You're plateaued at 7 or 8 wins. That is not going to encourage the fan base at all. That's status quo. And I like to think Stephen Ross is not interested in long-term monotonous status quo. But I could be wrong. Drake May, by the way. Drake May.
Yeah, Drake May. Yeah, who is some kind of balling.
I didn't see it coming. I got to be honest, too. I did not see it coming.
Yeah, he was one of those dudes where last year, even though the results were crappy because that team was so bad in the offensive line. You want to talk about bad offensive lines, and there are certain members of the South Florida media who are completely fixated on if only the Dolphins build the offensive line, all the problems will be solved. Okay, like Drake May last year completely. The offensive line completely sucked. There were enough flashes to where, this guy.
Yep.
Guy could be something. And the offensive line, they've kind of solved it a little bit, and that dude is good. So now the Dolphins have 2 problems that they have to face at quarterback. In closing, your level of confidence that the Dolphins can replicate what they did against the Falcons or come up with another very strong performance and leave Hard Rock Stadium with a victory over the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday night, as they did when the teams met on Thursday Night Football in 2021.
I don't love their chances. Could they win? Sure. But I think this is a Ravens team. If the Ravens had once again crapped the bed, family show against the Bears, like they had done the previous 4 weeks or so, I'd feel a lot better about it. But the Ravens seem to have found something, and they made Caleb Williams and that Ben Johnson offense look really, really bad. And they went back to imposing their will at the line of scrimmage against an extremely formidable Bears defense. And that was a message sender, I think. The Ravens are getting healthier. They're a team, and we saw last year, that had a rough start to the season and turned it around for different reasons, but turned it around in the second half of the year. And I think in their healthiest form, the Ravens are the team way more capable of doing that. I Could the Dolphins win? Yes. Do I feel great about it? No. Do I feel confident that Tua is going to have the full access to both eyes? Yes. And I was thinking, my first thing, I know he's got a young kid. The first thing I thought was pink eye, which, don't be ashamed. It happens to parents all the time. You never know when little pieces of bad things are going to get in your eye when you have sloppy, germ-ridden kids. But also, I don't know if he's contact wearer, but I still, like, once a year will have a sty situation based off of contact lenses, and it comes on quickly, and it tends to take a couple of days to go away. So credit to Tua for going out there, because it's very annoying. I don't know why he needed the entire Dolphins training staff to help him with that swollen eye. What I do is just take some ice and maybe some Benadryl, and it tends to go away.
Because you're not a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm not a franchise quarterback. I'm not even like the franchise member of my household. So I guess that's a great point. I haven't earned the right to get because my wife is a nurse, and even she is just like, go get your own ice. Okay.
Wow.
Thanks,
wow.
baby. Love you. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have dinner, please?
Exactly. So for me, I'd feel a whole lot better about this game if Lamar Jackson was still on the sideline.
Do we know the Ravens are going to tell the truth about that? Like, what the hell is going on there?
Well, no. John Harbaugh said yesterday, basically, he's very confident that Lamar is going to be out there. And in their first injury report of the week, which was based on an estimation, they had him as a full participant. So I think he's playing. But I think they held him out against the Bears to give him a couple more days to make sure he'd be completely ready. And obviously he presents a whole different set of issues than Tyler Snoop Huntley, who drew massive raves from Harbaugh for his performance against the Bears.
Yeah.
But we also know he's kind of limited as a passer. So where you have to focus, if he plays, you focus on stopping the Ravens running game, and you kind of in good shape with Lamar Jackson. Do you know that he had a 130 passer rating before he was sidelined? I mean, he was off to a fabulous start. It wasn't reflected in the standings because their defense was so bad, but he was balling.
You made the point earlier about, hey, if the Dolphins would have not missed on these draft picks, would they have been the same in the Dolphins organization? And that is similar to, not the same, but similar to the orbit of Snoop Huntley, who he was one thing with the Dolphins. I'm not saying he was bad, but he wasn't excellent. He has put together in his Ravens career several borderline excellent performances. And so that's sort of case in point to a smaller piece of your broader point on that.
Yeah, it was always weird. I mean, they got him from the Baltimore practice squad last year, and the thought is like, he's perfect for Baltimore. What the hell is he doing in Miami? He is so not a fit. I mean, but again, that's another issue we could go.
Right.
We could go back and forth on this issue of backup quarterbacks. Now we're back to Zach Wilson. Don't know who's going to be the backup against the Ravens. I'm going to guess it's going to be Zach Wilson again because they're basically not practicing this week. It's
you know what? My thing with Quinn Ewers versus Zach Wilson is, honestly, I don't care. Like, I don't care, and I can't bring myself to care. And just the nature of the season and Tua and the whole thing, like, just Tua, stay on the field as long as you can. And I feel like they're negligible. Quinn Ewers, the 7th round pick, or Zach Wilson, the flame out 1st round quarterback. I just don't care because they're the same person in my mind, the exact same person.
Except if the season, once the season is completely off the rails, as in no playoffs possible, this is why it behooves the Dolphins to find out what they have, because Quinn Ewers is on his rookie contract at 7th round pick, which is very, very cheap labor. If he shows you at the end of the year he can be a dependable number 2, then you don't have to worry about spending what they did this year on Zach Wilson, which was $6 million for a number 2, who now might be your number 3.
That's, you know what? I 1% care now.
Progress.
You talked me into 1%. Fair enough, Poop.
Okay. On that gain for me, I'll take that as a win. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks as always to my Tuesday buddy, Ken LaVicka. I had to go through the list again.
Yes.
The voice of Florida Atlantic University Sports, ESPN Radio talk show host. the voice of Inter Miami Football Club. By the way, did I hear this correctly? So they played their first game in the playoff series against Nashville last Friday night. They don't play again until this Saturday night.
Yeah, this Saturday. And it's not like Soccer Worldwide where you have aggregate scoring, one home, one away, and then whoever has more goals, that's how you determine you move forward. They've Americanized it. They've bastardized it to it's just best 2 of 3. So Inter Miami won 3-1. That doesn't matter at all going to Nashville on Saturday, 8 freaking days later, because we're just playing best of 3 in the MLS playoffs. Lame.
This is what the obnoxious jerk in me would say. Of course, they need 8 days between games. I mean, considering the rigors of the sport.
Oh, here we go.
I wouldn't say that.
Boorish Canadian / American poop sports take right there. There it is.
You want another sports take?
Yes.
Baseball take. Major league umpires get it right on the 3-2 on the 3-2 pitch or 3-1 pitch, whatever it was, when it's this much too high, and there's a runner on first base who silly him like everybody in the stadium, pretty much thinks it's ball 4. Anyway,
I agree. I completely agree with you. I'm with you.
Bad. Anyway, we're here to talk about football. Dolphins play against the Baltimore Ravens 2 nights from now. Again, I remember 2021. Dolphins also were another similarity. Dolphins were a touchdown underdog in that game in 2021, wound up winning 22-10. Does history repeat itself? We shall find out.
Kenneth Grant, big night coming. Kenneth Grant coming out party on the field. Yeah.
You heard it here first from Ken LaVicka. As for me, please check out the website, Miami Dolphins on SI.com. Half a dozen stories at least every single solitary day, all for free. The podcast, please like, comment, share, all that good stuff. Audio podcasts for those who prefer those. Google, Spotify, wherever you get your audio podcast. And Dolphins Collective Note for those who double dip, as I hope you do. Tuesday evening, I don't even know what time we're starting. I believe it's going to be 7:30 p.m. with Dudley Durong, TD Finstock, Omar Kelly, and myself. So thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.